Eli Grant was just a waiter. Every morning he opened the small silver door of the Star Diner on Voron Station. The place floated above a bright blue gas giant, filled with sounds of humming engines, alien languages, and the smell of strange spices. For 5 long years, Eli served every kind of traveler: miners, soldiers, smugglers, and nobles from other worlds. They never looked twice at him. To them, he was just another human working for credits. He didn't complain. He smiled, took their orders, and cleaned the tables. His dream was simple: to buy his own ship someday and fly home to Earth, a planet most aliens thought was a myth. Sometimes, when he had time, he sat near the window and watched stars drift like glowing dust. He wondered if kindness meant anything in a galaxy full of power and fear. That night, something strange happened. The diner was quiet. Only 2 alien traders sat in the corner arguing over prices. Eli was wiping the counter when the lights flickered. A second later, everything went dark. The air hummed with the low sound of engines stopping. The power grid was down, something that never happened on Voron Station. Great, Eli muttered, lighting a small lamp. Then he heard it, soft footsteps, quick and frightened. He turned and his heart skipped. A small alien child stood by the doorway. Her skin glowed faint blue, her silver eyes wide with fear. She wore a torn cloak and held a broken pendant in her hand. "Please," she whispered, trembling. "Someone is coming. They will hurt me." Eli blinked. "What are you talking about? Who's after you?" Before she could answer, heavy boots echoed in the corridor. Eli didn't think, he just moved. "Come on this way," he said, guiding her behind the counter. He opened the storage door and pushed her inside. "Stay quiet." The door had barely closed when 3 tall soldiers in black armor stormed in. Their faces were hidden under masks, their weapons humming with red energy. One of them slammed his hand on the counter. "Human, have you seen a child?" Blue skin, silver eyes. Eli froze. His mind screamed to tell the truth, to stay out of trouble. But when he looked at their cold armor and the fear on the little girl's face through the crack in the door, something changed inside him. He shook his head. "No, haven't seen anyone." The soldier stared hard at him. "Don't lie. The fugitive came through here." Eli forced a laugh. "Do I look like someone who hides fugitives? Check the place if you want." The soldiers scanned the diner. One of them pointed at the storage door. "What's in there?" "Supplies," Eli said quickly. "Just cleaning fluid and boxes." After a long pause, the leader nodded. "He's clean. Move out." As they marched away, Eli exhaled slowly, his hands shaking. He locked the diner door and hurried to the storage room. When he opened it, the little girl was sitting quietly, hugging her knees. "You can come out," he said softly. "They're gone." She looked up at him with tearful eyes. "You lied to protect me." "Why?" He shrugged. "Because you looked scared. No one deserves to be hunted like that." For a moment she stared at him as if studying his soul. Then she whispered, "You don't know what you've done." Eli frowned. "What do you mean?" She lifted the broken pendant. It glowed faintly, projecting a small symbol, a royal crest. "My name is Lyra. I am the daughter of the Voron Empress. Those men are soldiers of General Cray. He wants to take my mother's throne. If they catch me, he will start a war." Eli stepped back, shocked. "Wait, what? You're the Empress's daughter?" Lyra nodded. "You risked everything for me." He tried to laugh, but his voice shook. "Well, I didn't exactly plan to make enemies with an empire tonight." Lyra reached out, touching his arm with her small glowing hand. "Then you should run. They will come back when they find out you lied." "You saved the wrong girl." Eli stared at her, heart pounding. Outside, the lights flickered again. The station's loudspeakers came to life, announcing an emergency alert. A robotic voice echoed through the hallways. "Attention all sectors. Fugitive sighted near Dock 47. Human male accomplice identified. Reward 100,000 credits." Eli froze. His reflection stared back from the diner's glass window. His tired eyes, his stained uniform, and the face now labeled as a criminal. Lyra whispered, "They know." He looked at her, then at the stars beyond the window. Something inside him hardened, not fear, but resolve. "All right," he said quietly. "If they want to fight, they'll get one. But we're getting you out of here first." Lyra blinked. "You would help me?" Eli smiled faintly. "I'm just a waiter, but maybe it's time I do something that actually matters." As alarms echoed across the station, Eli grabbed his old jacket, sealed the diner door behind them, and led Lyra into the dark corridors. He didn't know it yet, but that single act of kindness would change not only his life, but the fate of the galaxy itself. Eli Grant didn't sleep that night. The cold steel corridors of Voron Station echoed with sirens and bootsteps. Red warning lights flashed as soldiers spread out, searching every corner. He and Lyra hid inside a narrow maintenance shaft behind the diner, their breathing slow and shallow. Lyra's glowing skin made it hard to hide. Eli wrapped her in his old worker's jacket. "You need to dim that light," he whispered. She nodded, pressing her small hands together until her glow faded to a dull blue shimmer. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen," Eli sighed. "You didn't do anything wrong, I did. I should have just told them the truth." She looked up at him, confused. "Then why didn't you?" He smiled faintly. "Because you looked like you needed help. Simple as that." For a moment, silence filled the shaft. Then the sound of heavy boots stopped nearby. 2 soldiers were talking outside. "Command says the human's name is Eli Grant," one said. "A waiter. Pathetic job. But the Empress's daughter trusts him. That's dangerous. Orders are to capture him alive," the other replied. "General Cray wants to make an example out of him." Eli clenched his fists. His name broadcasted across the station. They weren't just hunting him. They were hunting his very identity. When the footsteps faded, he whispered, "We need to move." They crawled through the shaft until they reached a maintenance bay. The air smelled of oil and hot circuits. A few droids lay powered down. Beyond the glass door was the docking ring, ships, cargo haulers, and dozens of bounty hunters scanning every face. Lyra pointed toward the ships. "If we can reach Dock 7, there's a courier vessel there. It belongs to a family loyal to my mother. They can take us to safety." "Dock 7, Eli repeated, thinking hard. "That's on the far side of the station. We'll never make it through the main halls." "I know another way," she said. Her eyes brightened slightly. "There's an old tunnel under the energy conduits. I used it when I escaped the palace." Eli chuckled softly. "Guess I'm not the only one who breaks rules." They slipped through the maintenance bay, staying low. Once outside, the scale of the manhunt became clear. Holoscreens showed his face everywhere. Human male, dangerous, accomplice of royal fugitive. Eli shook his head. "Great, I'm famous now." Lyra tugged his sleeve. "This way." They entered the old tunnel. It was dark, humid, and full of flickering lights. Pipes hissed above them as they walked. The further they went, the louder the hum of the station became, like the heartbeat of a giant machine. Suddenly, a metallic clang echoed behind them. Eli turned, hand tightening around a wrench he'd picked up. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. From the shadows, a large insectoid alien crawled out. Its eyes glowed red. "Eli Grant," it hissed. "There's a bounty for you. 100,000 credits. You're worth more than gold right now." Eli's mind raced. The creature's claws clicked as it moved closer. "Hand over the girl." "I won't hurt you much," he didn't think. He swung the wrench. It struck the alien's arm, sparks flying. The creature roared and slashed back, tearing through Eli's jacket. Lyra screamed. Her hands glowed again, bright and fierce. A wave of blue light burst out, knocking the alien against the wall. Eli stared at her in shock. "What was that?" Lyra trembled. "I don't know. My mother said I have gifts, but they only come when I'm scared." Eli helped her up, breathing hard. "Remind me not to make you mad, kid." They kept moving until the tunnel opened into a maintenance platform overlooking Dock 7. From there, they could see a small courier ship, a silver vessel shaped like a bird. But a group of bounty hunters guarded it. Lyra looked worried. "They'll never let us pass." Eli's eyes scanned the area. Then he spotted a hovering supply cart loaded with fuel cells. He grinned. "Maybe they don't need to." He jumped onto the cart and started pushing buttons. The engine hummed to life. The cart sped forward, smashing into the hunters' supplies and exploding in a flash of sparks. Smoke filled the air. "Now!" Eli shouted. They ran through the chaos, slipping past stunned hunters. Eli grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her into the ship. He slammed the door shut and hit the ignition. The engines whined. Outside, alarms blared again. "Unauthorized launch detected." The ship tore free from the docking clamps and shot into space. The blackness of the void swallowed them as stars streaked by. Eli fell into the pilot's seat, gasping for air. Lyra watched him quietly. "You risked your life for me again." He laughed weakly. "Guess I'm not smart enough to stop now." Then the comm screen flickered. A hologram appeared. an older alien man with sharp eyes and cold armor. General Cray. Human, the general said slowly, his voice like iron. You have something that belongs to me. Hand her over and I may let you live. Eli stared at him, anger rising. She doesn't belong to you. The general's eyes narrowed. Then you've chosen death. The transmission cut off. Eli turned to Lyra. Looks like we're in it now. Lyra nodded, a small tear rolling down her glowing cheek. You don't have to protect me. Eli smiled, his voice steady. Maybe not, but someone should. Outside the window, a fleet of dark ships began to move, chasing their small stolen vessel through the endless stars. And for the first time in his life, the ordinary waiter realized he wasn't running from danger anymore. He was running toward destiny. The stars stretched into lines of light as Eli's stolen ship jumped into hyperspace. For a few seconds, there was silence. Only the low hum of the engines and the steady breathing of two fugitives who had just escaped death. Eli leaned back in the pilot's seat, wiping sweat from his face. His hands were trembling, his knuckles raw from the fight in the tunnel. Well, he muttered, that could have gone worse. Lyra sat across from him, curled in the co-pilot's chair. Her silver eyes still glowed softly, reflecting the streaks of light outside. We escaped, she whispered, voice trembling. But the general will not stop. He never stops. Eli gave a weak smile. Let him chase. I'm getting good at running. But deep inside, he knew running couldn't last forever. The ship was old, a junkyard courier built for short jumps. The fuel cells were half dead, and the navigation system blinked with red warnings. He didn't even know how far they had gone. Lyra stared out at the stars. Humans are strange, she said softly. You risked everything for me. You didn't even know who I was. Eli looked at her, his voice quiet. Where I'm from, you help someone who's scared. Doesn't matter who they are. Her small hands gripped the chair. If more people were like you, the galaxy would be different, he chuckled. Maybe someday. Suddenly the lights flickered again. The ship shook hard. A red alarm blinked on the control panel. Warning, hyperdrive unstable. Energy output critical. Eli frowned. That's not good. He started pressing buttons, trying to reroute power. Lyra leaned closer. Can you fix it? I can fix tables, not starships, he said, half joking. But I'll try. The ship jerked again. Then with a loud pop, it dropped out of hyperspace. Stars snapped back into focus, too close, too bright. An entire asteroid field spread out before them, like floating mountains of rock and metal. Eli cursed under his breath. Of all places to stop? The ship's stabilizer screamed. He pulled the controls hard to the left, dodging a spinning boulder. The hull groaned. Lyra gripped the seat tightly, eyes wide. They weaved through debris for several tense seconds. One wrong move would have smashed them to dust. Finally, Eli spotted a hollow space between two large asteroids, a small hiding place. He guided the ship inside and cut the engines. Silence returned. Only the slow beeping of cooling systems filled the air. Eli exhaled. All right, we're alive. That's a start. Lyra floated out of her seat, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark cabin. You fly better than the palace guards, she said softly. Eli laughed. You should see me carry trays. That's real skill. She smiled. A small, shy smile that reminded him she was still just a child no matter her title. He opened the engine panel and stared at the mess of wires. If we don't fix this, we're stuck. And something tells me Cray's fleet won't be far behind. Lyra hovered beside him. Maybe I can help. Eli raised an eyebrow. You know engines? Not really, she admitted. But my mother says I can feel energy. I can make machines listen. Before he could answer, her hands glowed again. A soft pulse spread through the ship. Lights flickered, then steadied. The hum of the engines changed tone, smoother, stronger. The red warnings on the screen faded away one by one. Eli stared. How did you? Lyra smiled weakly. I told you. The machines listen. He leaned back, amazed. You just saved us again. But before he could relax, the radar blinked. 3 red dots appeared on the screen. Fast-moving ships approaching from the far edge of the asteroid field. Looks like we've been found, Eli said grimly. Lyra gasped. They followed us through hyperspace. That's impossible. Not for an army with your mother's tech, Eli said, taking the controls. Hold tight. He powered the ship back up and flew out of the asteroid pocket. Laser fire flashed behind them, slicing through rock and dust. One beam hit their left wing, shaking the ship violently. Lyra screamed. "We can't outrun them." Eli gritted his teeth. "Then we'll outsmart them." He steered toward a cluster of massive asteroids orbiting a dying red moon. The rocks were covered in frozen metal and wrecked ships, remnants of an old battle long ago. He dove between the ruins, weaving through narrow gaps as enemy fire exploded around them. Come on," he muttered, eyes darting across the radar. One of the pursuing ships tried to follow but crashed into a fragment of a broken cruiser. Another lost control when Eli sharply reversed direction. Only one remained, a black fighter with Kray's insignia. Eli aimed straight toward the moon's surface. "Time for a crazy idea," he said under his breath. Lyra clutched the seat. "Please tell me it's not suicide," he grinned. "Not yet." At the last second, he pulled the ship upward. The pursuing fighter shot past them, unable to turn fast enough. It smashed into the moon's surface in a burst of fire. Eli laughed in disbelief. "We're still alive." Lyra laughed too, half in fear, half in joy. "You're not just a waiter. You're a pilot." He smirked. "Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to protect." The ship steadied as the danger passed. Behind them, the asteroid field glowed with the light of explosions. Ahead lay a new horizon, distant stars and somewhere among them safety. Lyra looked at him. "Where will we go now?" Eli's smile faded. "Somewhere the Empire won't find us. Somewhere we can plan." Lyra nodded, her small voice calm. "I trust you." Eli turned to the stars again, feeling the weight of her words. He was no soldier, no hero, just a man who chose to help when it mattered. And out there, among a million stars, destiny had already started to whisper his name. The silence of space didn't last long. Just a few hours after escaping the asteroid field, Eli's ship began to beep again. A soft, repeating tone that sent a chill down his spine. "Tracking signal detected," the console warned in its robotic voice. Eli frowned. "They tagged us," he muttered. "That fighter we destroyed, it must have sent out a beacon before it blew." Lyra looked worried. "Can they find us again?" He nodded slowly. "They already have." As if to prove his words, the radar lit up, 5 red dots emerging from hyperspace behind them. Warships, sleek and black, spreading out in a V formation. At the center flew a massive cruiser with the mark of General Kray. Lyra gasped. "He's here." Eli gripped the flight controls, sweat forming on his palms. "We can't outrun that fleet. Our ship's too small." "Then what can we do?" she whispered. He stared at the dying red moon ahead of them. Its surface was cracked, covered with the remains of an old war, twisted ships, broken weapons, and fields of dust. "We hide," he said. He dove the ship down, weaving through the skeletal remains of fallen battleships. The debris field was thick, the air full of static energy from ancient weapons. The whole place felt haunted. As they passed a shattered cruiser, the ship's lights flickered. "This place is full of old energy," Lyra said softly. "It remembers death." "Then let's hope it remembers how to protect us," Eli replied. They landed inside the hollow wreck of a massive carrier, its walls scorched and its name faded. Eli cut the power and waited. Outside, Kray's fleet began to sweep the area, scanning for life. Through the cracked glass, Lyra could see the glowing lights of the enemy ships moving like hunting beasts. She pressed her small hand to the window. "He won't stop until he finds me. He wants the throne." Eli sat beside her, loading an old plasma pistol he found in the storage locker. "Then we'll give him a fight he won't forget." Lyra turned to him, eyes wide. "You can't face him. He commands armies." "I don't need to beat an army," Eli said calmly. "I just need to keep you alive." Moments later, a blinding beam of light pierced the carrier wall. One of Kray's ships had found them. The hull shook violently as metal screamed under the pressure of explosions. "Move!" Eli shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. They ran through the broken corridors as debris fell around them. The blast door ahead was jammed shut. Eli slammed his shoulder into it again and again until it creaked open just enough for Lyra to slip through. She turned back, reaching for him. "Eli!" He shoved her through and jumped after her just as another explosion tore the room apart. They landed in a dusty corridor on the lower deck, coughing and dazed. Outside, Kray's voice echoed through a loudspeaker. "Human, you cannot run forever. Hand over the girl and your death will be quick." Eli looked at Lyra, who was trembling but defiant. "You're not giving up, are you?" he asked. She shook her head. Never. Good. Then stay close. They reached the hangar bay, half destroyed, filled with old ships and scattered weapons. Eli found a small fighter still intact. If I can get this thing running, we can draw them away. Lyra looked at him with fear. You'll die. He smiled faintly. Maybe, but you'll live. Before she could argue, he climbed into the cockpit. The old engines coughed to life. He looked down at her. When you see the signal flare, run to the south ridge. There's a hidden bunker there. Stay there until I come back. She reached up, placing her glowing hand on his arm. You always come back, he nodded once. I'll try. Then he launched the fighter into the dusty sky. Kray's ships immediately turned toward the rising signal. Eli flew low, dodging blasts of red plasma. The old fighter rattled, its metal skin barely holding together. He fired back, hitting one enemy ship square in the engines. It exploded into brilliant fire. Another ship closed in behind him, shooting rapidly. Eli twisted the controls, diving toward the moon's surface. The fighter screamed through a canyon of shattered rock. Sparks burst inside the cockpit as a laser grazed his wing. He gritted his teeth. Come on, old girl, just a little longer. Suddenly, a shadow passed over him. The massive cruiser itself. Kray's voice came through the comms, cold and cruel. You're brave for a human, but bravery cannot save you. Eli smiled grimly. We'll see about that. He pulled a lever, ejecting the fighter's power core. It exploded seconds later, a blinding light filling the canyon. Kray's cruiser was forced to pull back, shields flaring. Down below, Lyra saw the light and gasped. She closed her eyes and whispered something in her ancient tongue. A wave of energy rippled outward from her, glowing blue like a sunrise. When it reached the battle above, it spread across the sky, shutting down Kray's ships one by one. Engines died, lights faded, and silence fell again. On the ground, the wreckage smoked. Lyra ran through the dust, calling Eli's name. She found him lying near the broken fighter, bruised but alive. She knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. You kept your promise, Eli coughed, smiling weakly. Told you, I always come back. The red moon was quiet again, its skies filled with drifting wrecks and blue light. For now, the battle was over, but the war for Lyra's throne had only just begun. The red moon had gone quiet after the battle. Smoke drifted through the ruins and the air shimmered with leftover heat from broken engines. Eli sat near the wrecked fighter, his shirt torn, blood drying on his arm. Beside him, Lyra was tending, his wounds with glowing hands, her soft light wrapping around him like a gentle fire. He winced. You don't have to do that. Lyra shook her head. You saved me again. I can heal you. It's the least I can do. Her glow pulsed brighter for a moment, and Eli felt warmth spreading through his veins. The pain faded. He took a deep breath, surprised. You're full of surprises. Before Lyra could answer, the ground shook. A low, deep hum filled the air, the sound of engines descending from the sky. Eli stood quickly, shielding his eyes. From the dusty clouds above, a massive black ship lowered itself, its shadow covering the entire crater. Lyra's face turned pale. It's him. A voice echoed through the speakers, calm but heavy with power. Human, you've caused enough trouble. Let's talk. A beam of light shot down, and from it stepped General Kray, tall, armored, and cold as stone. His crimson cape fluttered in the dry wind. His eyes, sharp and gray, locked on Eli first, then on Lyra. Eli raised his weapon, though his hands shook. Stay back. Kray smirked. Relax, waiter. If I wanted you dead, you would be ash already. He walked closer, his boots crunching over debris. You've been brave, reckless, but brave. Few dare stand between me and my goals. That earns my respect. Eli said nothing, keeping his aim steady. The general stopped a few steps away. You're wasting your life for her, he said, pointing at Lyra. You think she's just a frightened child, but she's a weapon. That glow of hers can control machines, bend energy, even command soldiers' minds. She's not your friend. She's power waiting to be used. Lyra's voice trembled. You lie. Kray's lips curved. Do I? Ask your mother what she built into your blood. You were made, not born. You are the key to ruling this galaxy. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. You're trying to turn me into you. The general ignored her and turned back to Eli. You've seen what she can do. Help me control that power. I'll give you anything you want. Credits, ships, a home on any world. You'll live like a king. All you need to do is step aside and hand her over. Eli lowered his weapon slightly, breathing hard. And if I don't? Cray's smile vanished. Then you die here, and she becomes mine anyway. The words hung in the air. The dust swirled between them, the silence thicker than the smoke. Eli looked at Lyra, this small girl who had trusted him completely, who had healed him, who had smiled through fear. He thought of the first night in the diner, the way she had trembled when he hid her. He lifted his weapon again. You're wrong about her, he said quietly. She's not a weapon. She's someone who deserves to be free, and I won't let you take her. Cray's eyes turned cold. Then you choose death. The air crackled as soldiers in dark armor emerged from the beam of light, forming a circle around them. Lyra gasped. Eli fired first. Blue plasma lit the air. One soldier fell, then another. But there were too many. A blast hit Eli's shoulder, spinning him to the ground. Lyra screamed, her hands glowing like fire. Stop! A shockwave exploded outward, blinding everyone. Soldiers flew backward, their weapons melting in their hands. The general raised his shield, stepping through the energy with effort. His voice thundered, Enough! But Lyra didn't stop. Her power grew, brighter, louder, rising like a storm. Eli crawled toward her. Lyra, you'll burn yourself out. She turned, tears glowing like silver drops. I won't let him hurt you. The sky cracked with blue lightning. Cray's ship trembled, alarms wailing. The general retreated to the beam of light, shouting, You can't hide forever, child, you're mine. Then he vanished into his ship as it blasted upward, fleeing the storm of her energy. The explosion of light faded slowly. Lyra collapsed beside Eli, unconscious but breathing. He gathered her in his arms, holding her close as the wind quieted. You did it, kid, he whispered. You scared the devil himself. For a long moment, there was silence. Only the broken hum of dying engines filled the air. Then a faint voice came from the communicator on Cray's abandoned soldier, static, and words mixed together. Fleet regrouping. Prepare next phase. Target, the human. Eli looked toward the stars where Cray's ship had vanished. He knew it wasn't over. The general would come again, harder, stronger. He looked down at Lyra, her face peaceful against his chest. Guess we better get ready, he muttered, because now, he's not just coming for you, he's coming for both of us. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear, Eli felt something new, something strong. The waiter who once served strangers was gone. A guardian had taken his place. The next sunrise on the red moon was quiet and haunting. Dust hung in the air like mist, glowing orange under the weak light. Eli stood at the edge of a broken ridge, staring at the sky where General Cray's fleet had vanished. His body ached, his clothes torn, but his eyes were steady. Behind him, Lyra slowly woke. Her breathing was shallow, her skin still glowing faintly from the energy storm she unleashed. When she saw him, her voice was weak but calm. He's gone. For now. Eli nodded without turning. Yeah, but he'll be back. Lyra sat up, hugging her knees. We can't run forever. Eli finally looked at her. Then we don't run. We go back. Lyra blinked in surprise. Back? To the capital? That's suicide. Maybe, Eli said softly. But if your mother doesn't know what Cray is doing, she needs to hear it. You said she thinks he's loyal. We have to show her the truth before he strikes again. Lyra hesitated, fear and hope mixing in her eyes. The palace is guarded by the Imperial Legion. They'll capture us the second we land. Eli gave a small, tired smile. Then we'll have to sneak in. You're the princess, remember? You should know a few secret doors. For the first time since the battle, Lyra laughed. A small, soft sound that made the dusty morning feel warm. You're impossible, Eli Grant. Yeah, he said, grinning. That's what people keep telling me. By nightfall, they found a half-broken shuttle buried in the wrecks. It was an old Royal Courier, its design sleek but covered in rust. Lyra recognized the emblem on the side. This belonged to the Palace Guard. Then it'll do, Eli said, climbing inside. He worked for hours, repairing the circuits with scavenged tools. Lyra used her strange energy to recharge the power cells. When the engines finally roared to life, the moon's dust lifted in a cloud. They rose silently into the star-filled void, leaving the red battlefield behind. For 2 days, they traveled, through hidden routes, old royal paths only the Empress's family could access. Lyra guided him through the navigation codes, her small fingers dancing over the console. Every time she looked out the window, her heart ached. Home felt so close, yet so dangerous. Finally, the capital appeared ahead, a giant golden world surrounded by shimmering defense rings. Massive towers reached into space, shining like suns. Eli whistled low. And I thought the diner looked fancy. Lyra smiled, but her hands trembled on the controls. If we're caught, they'll shoot us down before we even enter orbit. Then let's not give them a reason, he said, pulling up a disguise protocol. He changed the ship's signature to that of a merchant vessel from a neutral colony. They entered the atmosphere quietly, blending with cargo traffic. The sky was a swirl of silver clouds and bright ships. Lyra led them to a valley near the palace, a forgotten landing bay covered in vines. This was my mother's secret dock, she whispered. Only a few know it exists. Lucky for us, Eli said. They landed safely. Lyra stepped out first, her boots touching the soil of her home for the first time in months. She stared at the glowing city in the distance. I almost forgot how beautiful it is. Eli looked around, scanning for patrols. Let's move before someone notices. The palace stood on a floating island of crystal and metal, surrounded by waterfalls that sparkled under the moonlight. Guards in silver armor patrolled the bridges, unaware that the missing princess was slipping past them in the shadows. Lyra led Eli through a hidden passage beneath the throne hall. This way, she whispered. It connects to the royal chambers. As they climbed the narrow stairs, Eli asked quietly, What will you say to her? The Empress? Lyra hesitated. The truth. That Cray betrayed her. That he wants to start a war using me as his weapon. And if she doesn't believe you? Lyra looked at him with sad eyes. Then we run again. They reached a grand corridor lined with silver mirrors. At the end stood a tall door made of glass and light. Lyra placed her hand on the lock. It glowed blue and opened slowly. Inside, the Empress waited. She was tall, graceful and regal, her skin the same pale blue as her daughter's, her crown made of living energy. When her eyes fell on Lyra, they widened in shock. My child, she whispered. You're alive. Lyra ran forward and hugged her. For a brief moment, the galaxy seemed peaceful again. But then the guards rushed in. Your Majesty? That human, he's the kidnapper. Eli raised his hands. Wait, I'm not. Seize him, the captain ordered. Before Lyra could speak, Eli was thrown to the ground, his arms pinned. Stop, she cried. He saved me. He fought for me. The Empress raised her hand and the guards froze. She looked at Eli carefully. Release him. As the soldiers stepped back, she studied his face. I saw your image across the galaxy. Why would a human risk his life for my daughter? Eli met her gaze. Because she needed help. Because she deserves better than a throne built on lies. The Empress frowned. What do you mean? Lyra stepped forward. Mother General Cray, he's betrayed you. He plans to use your army to destroy rival systems and crown himself emperor. I saw it. The Empress's eyes darkened. Those are dangerous words, child. Eli took a step closer. They're also true. For a long moment, the throne room was silent. Then the Empress turned to her guards. Bring me Cray, now. A storm of movement followed, but outside the palace windows, dark shapes were already gathering in the sky. Cray's fleet, descending fast. Eli looked up, his heart tightening. Too late, he whispered. He's already here. The sky above the capital burned. Flashes of red and gold lit the clouds as General Kray's fleet descended like dark thunderbirds. Explosions rippled through the defense towers. The city's energy shields flickered, trembling under the storm of plasma fire. Inside the palace, alarm screamed. Soldiers ran through marble halls as the Empress stood before her throne, her face pale but fierce. Lyra clung to her mother's arm, shouting, "He's attacking! He's come to take everything!" The Empress looked at her daughter, then at Eli. "You were right," she said softly. "I was blind to his ambition." Eli stepped forward. "We don't have time to blame anyone. We need to defend this place before he lands." The palace guards turned toward him uncertainly. He was still a human, an outsider, but his voice carried the calm strength of someone who'd already faced death. "What can one man do?" a guard asked. Eli smiled faintly. "Depends on the man." Outside, Kray's main warship split the sky open. The general's voice echoed through every comm channel. "People of the Voran Empire," he declared, "your empress has grown weak. The throne demands strength. Surrender the palace and no more blood will fall." Eli looked up at the ceiling speakers and muttered, "This guy really loves his speeches." Lyra grabbed his hand. "He's not bluffing. He'll destroy the whole capital to get to us." Eli nodded, his mind already racing. "Then we need to make him come down here himself." The Empress frowned. "What are you planning, human?" Eli looked at the throne, a giant crystal device connected to the palace's energy core. "You said this palace runs on living energy. Can it be reversed?" The Empress hesitated. "Reversed? You mean turned into a weapon?" He nodded. "Only long enough to disable his fleet." Lyra's eyes widened. "Mother, you can't. The power would kill you." Eli shook his head. "Not if we share it." He placed his hand on the throne's glowing surface. Lyra did the same. The Empress looked between them, her child and the stranger who had saved her, and slowly joined them. The room filled with light. Energy flowed through the throne, humming like a living heartbeat. The palace itself began to glow, lines of blue and gold spreading across its walls. Kray's fleet noticed the change. "Fire on the palace!" he roared. Beams of red plasma rained down, but as they hit the surface, the energy bent, twisted and reflected back like light bouncing off water. Several of Kray's ships exploded under their own fire. "Impossible!" he shouted. Inside, Eli's hands shook as the energy burned through him. Every cell in his body screamed, but he refused to let go. Lyra's glow grew brighter, merging with his. The Empress's voice echoed through the chamber. "Now, child, release it!" Lyra screamed, and the world turned white. The blast swept through the sky like a tidal wave. It struck Kray's fleet with the force of a sun. Every ship went silent. Engines died, weapons melted, and the general's cruiser cracked apart. Inside his command deck, Kray stared in disbelief as the controls sparked around him. No, but not by a human. His ship fell from orbit, a burning star crashing into the far desert. When the light faded, the city was still standing. The sky cleared, showing thousands of alien citizens staring upward, watching as the last of the general's fire vanished into smoke. Hours later, the palace was quiet again. Eli opened his eyes slowly. He was lying near the throne, his clothes singed, his chest aching with every breath. Lyra sat beside him, holding his hand tightly. "You're awake," she whispered, tears glistening in her silver eyes. He gave a weak smile. "Did we win?" She nodded, smiling through her tears. "The fleet is gone. The people are safe." The Empress stood nearby, her regal armor cracked, her expression full of pride and gratitude. "You've done what no one else could, Eli Grant. You saved my daughter. You saved my empire." Eli struggled to sit up. "I just did what was right." The Empress smiled gently. "And that is what makes humans so dangerous and so beautiful." She raised her hand. "By royal decree, I name you guardian of the air and defender of Voran. You will always have a place among us." Eli blinked, half amused, half humbled. "That's a lot for a waiter from a diner." Lyra laughed softly. "You're not just a waiter anymore." He looked at her, smiling faintly. "Don't remind me. I miss tips." The Empress chuckled softly, then turned serious. "The galaxy will hear of this. The story of the human who stood against an empire will spread far and wide." Eli looked out the palace window. The city sparkled beneath the twin moons. "Let them talk," he said quietly. "I didn't do it for them." He turned to Lyra. "You okay?" She nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "I'm home. Because of you. For a moment, there was peace, true peace, the kind Eli hadn't felt in years. The Empress stepped closer. You could stay here among us. You've earned more than any soldier ever could. Eli shook his head gently. Maybe someday. But for now, I think I'll go back to serving people, just not food this time. He stood slowly, looking out at the stars beyond the palace dome. There's a lot of worlds out there that could use a little kindness. Lyra smiled. And maybe a little stubbornness, he laughed quietly. Yeah, maybe that too. The Empress watched as he walked toward the docking bay, his shadow long under the palace lights. To most, he was just a human. But to them, he was something more. The man who changed destiny with one simple act of kindness. The ordinary waiter, who saved a world,